I actually am still a brown belt.
Are you still a
So
brown belt?
yeah, I've been training 14 years. I spent 5 years at purple belt, 5 years at brown belt. I'm still a brown belt. And I just I don't really have a head instructor anymore. So just kind of in limbo. Like I just don't really control that. But if I were to join like a gym, I mean, most of the people that came up with me are like 1 or 2 straight black belts now. So
But I mean, people may have probably complimented you that you are like, even at purple belt, you've been like, yo, that's the blackest purple belt I've ever rolled with
yeah,
in my
it's
life,
not
you know?
really a compliment. Most people will get mad and accuse me of sandbagging, and it's just like like I don't control the promotion, so that's just the way it is. But I did spend a long time. Like I got my blue belt in under 6 months, like so quick. And I like too quick because I competed twice at white belt, and the first tournament was like an in-house John Jock tournament, and I just got like ruined. Like my soul left my body. It was horrible. Um, and then the next tournament I won my division, and it was, it's a white belt. So it was a bunch of randomness in it. And then I got promoted like right after that. It was like 5 months or something like that, 4.5 months, right around there. And then I was just thrown into the sea of blue belt competition where there's like 4-year blue belts and you're like just a 4-month like jiu-jitsu practitioner at all. So it was, it was a steep learning curve for that. So could have spent more time at white belt, but then, yeah, got my blue belt, was there like 3.5 years, then 5 years at purple from like 2010 to 2015. And then 2015 to now, still brown, still out here.
So as someone that teaches people, how critical is it, maybe in your frame of mind first, I'll ask from your perspective, how critical is it for your student to compete, to earn like a matriculation to the next color belt? Or is that kind of like old school thinking?
For competition?
Sure.
Well, I mean, it depends. Like, so when I went to, part of the reason that I was purple for so long is I switched gyms. I went from Shawn Williams to Cobriñha's. And so when you switch gyms, they have to like feel you out or whatever.
Sure.
And that can take a while. And I think I was like a few years into my purple at that point, and I switched over. It was for like 2 years into my purple. And I switched over to Cobriñha's, and so he's feeling me out. But they knew that I wanted to compete. So it's a competition school. So he won't like promote you if you still have stuff that you need to do at that belt level, which I did because I was, kind of life got in the way. I somewhere in there opened my own gym and just did a million different things and was also injured too. So it was rough. So I was never able to quite do what I wanted in competition. And I think it was more like a politeness type of thing, like okay, well, time's a wasting, let's get on this. But it just never happened. And he finally just promoted me. And then after that, I lived out of the country for a year and just had other things going on. So I haven't been back to the headquarters in probably about 2 years or so.
Without trying to go too much Joe Rogan on you, which country did you end up moving to?
I lived in Japan for like most of 2018.
Oh, okay. So. And you moved there because?
So I went to Japan to commentate for Flow Grappling. I commentated what is that? It is the Abu Dhabi Grand Slam Tokyo. Is that the one it is? Yes, it is. And went there, commentated. Loved it. Ended up later on meeting a girl and decided to try to stay there and work it out, and ended up there for a whole year.
Well, was it a hard adjustment to Japan, or did you embrace the differentness?
Well, it's really tough to I didn't know anything about Japan when I went there, like zero. It was bad. And a lot of people there do not speak English. It's an interesting thing. So, and I did not speak any Japanese. So very difficult. That first year, or the first 6 months really were rough. Like sometimes you get avoidant, like you don't even want to go out to, local convenience store because you don't even know what to say to the clerk or whatever, right? So you end up like staying at home, or just not eating, or waiting for other friends that can speak Japanese to help you out. So it's I've never really been through anything like that. It was interesting.
Yeah, good luck saying acai bowl in Japanese, right?
Acai. Acai. Yeah, I don't know how that one would go over.
Did you find a lot of was it more parallel as far as for BJJ training in Japan, or was it really different culturally? Because Robert Drysdale, he's putting out the Closed Guard documentary, and he found a lot of major differences in discipline and practice. Did you find a lot of difference as far as for the practitioners, and what was your reaction to it?
Yeah, it was super weird. I mean, like, jiu-jitsu comes from Japan, and it's like in the form of, it was jiu-jitsu, but it was also judo too. Like old school judo is the same thing. Like it had all of the ground and the stand-up and everything. It's jiu-jitsu is old judo basically. And so like they brought that to the Gracies. The Gracies messed it up and did their own version of it, and then made that good. And then they brought that to America. And meanwhile, like that stuff, like Olympic judo is still very popular in Japan, but jiu-jitsu like kind of fizzled out. So like the level was not very high in Japan. It's getting better now. But there's like only like a handful of gyms that are actually competitive on like a world level, and especially within like the last 5 years or so. But before that, it was like not, I was surprised. I thought it would be better because that was like the motherland, but like I was for sure, like if I went to any random gym, like I was going to be either the best or one of the best guys there, like every time. So it was interesting. There's a couple of competition gyms there that do have really good guys, but it's very few.
So a year hits and you decide to move back to LA. What made you decide to move back? Just to be home?
It was a lot of factors. It was rough. Like I barely got out of there, like by the skin of my teeth at the time. So it's been a little bit of a rocky road the last 5 years or so for me. And that was just like, there was so many things going on at that time. Like, I don't know. I was in danger of overstaying my visa while I was there too. And I didn't really want to get like banned from the country. So, like I had to try to find a way home. And for a little while I was commentating in Korea. And so I would just bounce over to Korea, commentate, come back and reset my visa, because I was just on a tourist visa. Like I had zero plans. I went over there with like my backpack and it's like, hey, I'm here. I'm just going to stay. So it was an interesting thing. But that only lasted so long. And then they start to catch on to you resetting your visa over and over again, because you're not really supposed to do that. And then it's time to like either figure something out there or get out of Dodge. So I ended up leaving, went to Thailand for like a month, and then decided to come back to America and see what was going on here. But it was, it was so crazy. Like if you've never been to Japan, I don't know if you've been, but it's
on short stint, nothing crazy.
But it's like a different world there. Like everything that as Americans or probably anywhere else in the world people think is like normal, like that is not the case in Japan. Like they just go by their own rules. It's got a lot of positives to it. Like it's an amazing country. Definitely some negatives too, but it is a place like I've never been to before. It's pretty amazing. I highly recommend you spend time there if you get the chance.
Just
pretty
to
cheap
check
to go
it
there
out.
too.
From be like in a completely
California.
different planet almost, right?
It is. It's crazy. Like people will are so polite and so reserved that, you know, like if you go into a Combini, like convenience store, like 7-Elevens are everywhere, but they're not like the 7-Elevens here. They're amazing. They have really good fresh fruit, food over there. And everything's cheap and just tasty and nutritious. Like it's super good. But so if you go to a Combini and like maybe you're an American or from a different country and you don't speak the language and you're trying to talk to the clerk, like they will sit there and painstakingly, even though they want to, like, I think if you spend more time with Japanese people, you can tell like they probably want to gouge their eyes out. They just hate every second of what you are torturing them with, but they will sit there and they will like try to figure out whatever it is to help you and get you on your way, to the detriment of everyone else. Like they will, like all the other customers in there will patiently wait, even if they're like going to be late to work or whatever. It's like such a bizarre place. They're so polite. It's unreal.
But did you ever experience or witness like passive aggressiveness because they're so polite? Or probably not. They're probably so tiger monk disciplined, though that's a Chinese reference. But
I don't, they're like, they might even be, I'm sure there is passive aggressiveness there, but they might even be like beyond that in a way where it's like, they don't even, there's like a word for it. I don't even remember what it is, but like where they don't even tell their friends how they really feel about things. And there's like a name for that. And when you do tell somebody how you really feel about the way things are, which is not really something that's commonly done there, there's also a name for that too, because it's such a thing. So stuff that we just take for granted. But
yeah, I think that's so nuts. That's why they have like tentacle octopus porn and hentai.
It's so reserved.
They're
And, yeah, and
nutbags.
they're so repressed. Yeah, everything it's just bizarro world there. So that is going to create some type of collateral damage on the back end. And to your point, like that's why you get so many like weird and crazy things coming out of Japan, because it's just like well, of course they came out of there, because look at all the other stuff that may be fantastic, but it's just so unusual. So.
Right, it's so white linen and disciplined and vanilla, and then it's like, now here you go, tentacle porn.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, they make great horror films, great, like really like just truly disturbing art. It's fantastic. So if you like that type of thing, if you don't, but it's so unusual if you're not expecting that, to see like how orderly and polite everyone is and clean, like the cleanest place I've ever been to in my life. And then see what else they're producing there, like on the kind of like down low side of things. Really, it's really pretty interesting.
But are you glad you're back in LA now?
Not right now. No, absolutely not.
Right, pandemic wise, right.
If the travel ban hadn't have happened, like I would be back in Japan in a heartbeat. So,
oh, interesting. Because
yeah.
I felt like the vibe was like, hey, that was a good experience, but that was that book and chapter back then. But you're still willing to come back.
Yeah. I love it there. And I think it's better to not go like the way I went, where I'm just like, hey, I'm here, like
Backpack.
Probably not the best idea if you just have zero plans. And I got myself in a little bit of trouble over there. So that was, it's an interesting experience. But now, like, if I went back, like I'd have like a project to work on. I also have friends there. I trained there for so long. Like, one of my friends, Yuki, he owns Carpe Diem, which is like probably the best competition gym in all of Japan. And I have a lot of really good friends that are training partners there. And it's like a community, and I feel comfortable now. So, but initially going, it was rough.
And that's not Yuki Nakai, is it?
No, not. Although I did go to his gym. He's at Pro Raistra with what's her name, Rikako, who was the like 4-time black belt world champion at the lightest weight. She is under him, or under Pro Raistra, and his headquarters were like, all of us at Flow went over there to do a little filming and a little training, and I got to meet him, and super nice guy. But not like a everyone's polite nice. Like he's like you feel like this weird genuineness from him. It was really cool.
Dope, man. Well, I was also curious about like your exposure to jujitsu because with Shawn Williams, he's probably the best feet to floor guy, if that's fair for me, or one of the better
Oh
feet
my
to floor
God.
guys.
Oh my God. My takedowns, I hate to say it, like I love Cobriñha. I love training there. I learned so much. My sport jujitsu, my gi sport jujitsu, like really went through the roof when I was there. And he taught me a lot. You just go to a different hardworking environment. You're going to pick up on their traits and hopefully not their bad habits too, but you're going to get a lot of their positives. And one of the bad habits I got is just because they never trained feet to floor. Like I lost the 4 years of judo and wrestling that we did pretty much every day at Shawn Williams. And man, that's rough. Like now I'm trying to build it back right now. And I used to be so much better. Like Shawn really had us working pretty good with the stand up. He's a great teacher in general. So it was a bummer to lose the stand up like that. And now to try to get it back is it's tough. So
How was your ground training?
at Shawn's,
Mm-hmm.
Shawn's ground training was great. Like I probably learned, if I had to pick one place, one person that I learned the most jujitsu from, it would be Shawn Williams because I was there. There was like a crazy split that happened back in the day with Hollywood Jiu-Jitsu where there was two Shawns, Shawn Flannery, Shawn Williams. They had a falling out. They both kind of like owned the gym, or Shawn Williams was like the big jiu-jitsu draw. Flannery owned the gym, and they had a falling out for whatever reason. I followed Shawn Williams because he was my instructor. I was friends with Shawn Flannery, but like at the end of the day, it's like I'm there for jujitsu, yeah, and he was my head coach, so I'm gonna follow him. And that when I did that, because about half of the people stayed at Hollywood Jiu-Jitsu, and the other half followed Shawn Williams, and he started 5-star, and that was like. I think I like fast tracked me because he needed people to teach for him because you can't teach every single class, especially you're doing construction work on the gym, you're doing other stuff, you're trying to promote everything and train yourself. It's just too much. So like there was myself and this other guy, Dane, very good, and we really like got taken under his wing, and he showed us so much stuff and would sit there and spend countless hours like answering questions, and like that's where I really like learned jiu-jitsu as a whole. And I still have like a pretty like solid foundation to my no-gi game that I still use like to this day is probably 80% from Shawn. So learned a ton from him.
So like Master Jean-Jacques has the over-under game, Shawn Williams has the feet to floor, and the kind of like strategic well-depth explanatory method of jiu-jitsu. That's from what I've researched. I've never trained with him, but that's just from my research and from what people say.
Yeah.
The math behind Cobriñha, did you have a hard adjustment, or what was your adjustment like? Because that's a completely different element of jiu-jitsu, right? Because there's the alliance, and then there's the competition version of Rubens Charles.
Yeah. So like I was really interested in competing. Like I'm a big like competition, like I love the technique and the cutting edge stuff for jiu-jitsu, and Shawn's great for that really because he's like an encyclopedia, like you're saying. Like he's really like he knows a ton about jiu-jitsu, like gi, no gi, takedowns. Like he's just all over the place, and it's fantastic, and he really like dissects it, and he talks to other people that do a lot too. So like like when I went to Cobriña's, like I felt 100% fine in especially no-gi, or if there's ever stand-up, like, yeah, I felt amazing. Like I was so good. But then as soon as we like put on the gi and started going, like everyone's just doing the sportiest stuff because a lot of the competition guys all left their gyms in SoCal or even further and came either to like Romulo's or Cobriña's because they like had their own place about the same time.
Sure.
But a lot of people came to Cobriña's, and it was just the meat grinder. Like any random blue belt that was there for like the noon class, like the competition class. Oh my God. They were just, they were like a world beater. They're probably like a Pan Am champ themselves. And there was just no light rolls. You roll 10-minute rounds. You roll 6 of them after like a 60-minute class, which might not be technique. It might be just like movement drills for 60 minutes straight, like line drills, like hip escapes and stuff like that for like an hour. Then you do an hour straight with like 0 breaks, maybe like 15 seconds between rounds of just training. And then sometimes he would have us do conditioning afterwards, or we do competition rounds afterwards. So it's like a 3-hour thing of super high intensity, rough. So the real sporty gi stuff, like he's just so on the cutting edge, or he was at least. Like I haven't trained back there in a couple of years, but he used to be like on the bleeding edge of all of that stuff. And I would maybe be more focused for like no-gi or MMA, because Shawn's so good with that stuff. And like I was still new enough, like I was like a midway through my purple belt, that I thought of it more in those terms. Like I hadn't like delved into specifics for like real sporty situational things, because you just don't have the time. You want to like fill out all your broad like all of your fundamentals and everything first, and get your base so that if you need to defend yourself, like you have that, right? Because that's probably the most important thing of all, and get all those bases covered. And so that's where I was really coming from and looking to go to the next step. And then you go to Cobriña's, and like at the time, like they didn't care about self-defense. They didn't care about stand-up. It was just like, go hard, go as fast as possible. Like, just grind it out and like play the like wackiest, most crazy sporty game possible, because there's just a good chance if you're good at that, like maybe some guy at a tournament has no idea what you're doing, just like I didn't. Like I kind of like knew the basics of it, but like then you just get berimboloed out of nowhere, and like all your worst nightmare of like sport jiu-jitsu, like everyone playing it against you like so much better than you, like oh my god, it was terrible. Like I just got creamed for about 4 months hardcore, like could not even compete in the gi. It was terrible. And then you start to pick it up, like especially like there's certain things that like I just hadn't filled in yet, that maybe even Shawn teaches, but I was myself still newer, so I hadn't gotten to the point with him to where I learned those things, but they were super apparent when you go to Cobriña's. So for me going over there, like the sportiness of everything was just shocking, and the pace, like nobody stops, like they just go super hard. Everyone was like 19 to 23, and it was just ridiculous. So, and I was much older, so but it was good. Like it was great training, learn a lot about yourself, and I got so much better there.
And does it get to a point where not like jujitsu hipsterism or anything, but it was like cool to bash the berimbolo, like maybe 2005 to 2012, right?
No, I mean the berimbolo wasn't even like a thing then, right? Like the first time I ever saw berimbolo, I remember because I was with Shawn and I was coaching my friend Eddie, and Eddie was doing I think it was the Pan Ams, and he was also in the same division as my other training partner he didn't have a gym, and that's Edwin Najmi. So him and Hamulo didn't have a gym at the time because they were going through that fallout with Gracie Baja and Sino.
Right.
And so they came and trained with us at 5-Star. And so I trained with them all the time, and Felipe Pena. And man, Edwin was like, he went from being like not so great at jiu-jitsu, like before he was doing the Pan Ams, like he was like, okay, to being just this ridiculous black, like he's so good now, it's crazy. But to see that progression, like I used to train with him and you'd have to go easy on him when he was like a blue belt. And now I'm sure you just kick my butt. He's so good. But so like him and my friend Eddie were both in the same division. And there was this kid out there that was like appearing on people's backs out of nowhere. And it's like, who is this, like this meow kid? Like what's going on there? And his brother was in the purple belt division already. So like he just had a free reign in this blue belt division. I was coaching my friend in the semifinals, and like he did a berimbolo, and I was like I was coaching him, and like, I don't know what to say. I don't even know what happened. Like I had to like think about it, and I'm like, man, am I just a bad coach? Like what, like it's the first time I'd ever seen it. Nobody else around me seemed to know what was going on. Like no senior belts, no people from other teams. Like it was pretty new. And sure enough, he like took my friends back, beat him, and then went to the finals against Edwin Najmi and beat him in the finals too. And then he went to the open weight and like he won that whole open weight too. But I saw him like either in the semifinals or finals, and he baramboloed some like 300 and something pound guy, and it was just like this little tiny Japanese looking Brazilian kid just on the back of this humongous blue belt. It's just like, who are these kids? It was crazy. But everyone there was just like, what is happening? Like, we need to learn this. And then it blew up. Like people were posting on YouTube, like trying to dissect it. And then within like a year, somebody posted like a real breakdown of it. And then everyone started to slowly learn it from there. But it was not like something that anyone that I knew anything about early on.
But were you resistant to it? Because something, especially for like older people, not that you are, but I'm 45. For my generation,
older, yeah.
we look at something and we're like, well, it's different, so I'm going to judge it. I don't like it. It's different. It's new. So I don't like it. Were you like in the middle about it? Were you curious about it?
No, I'm pretty progressive with jiu-jitsu. I'm a super huge proponent about questioning the status quo of everything. Like, you maybe train hip escapes for your whole, like, I've been training for 14 years. Like maybe I've done hip escapes for 14 years. If somebody were to do a hip escape and they're like, I could see merit in it and it's different than the hip escapes everyone else does, I would change my hip escape. Like I really believe like there are better ways to do things that we just don't understand yet. We don't, like jiu-jitsu is perfect, and there's like perfect ways to do things, or more efficient ways at least. And we're just kind of like grasping at table crumbs to try to figure out, like, make our jiu-jitsu better. But we're usually like way behind the curve of where like if a robot were to like teach itself physics and then how to move and how to beat somebody that's trying to attack it, like it would move in such weird ways that a human would probably not intuitively think about. Like humans are, like humans are interesting, like the way they think about stuff. So like there was like a Braulio Estima armbar like video that he used to do, where he would talk about putting the foot on the hip, and from there you're in guard, close guard. You bring your opponent onto super basic armbar from close guard, right? You put your foot on the hip, you put your other leg over your opponent's shoulder, right? And then you can throw the leg over. But what everyone does from there is, because you're taught hip escapes your whole jiu-jitsu career, they put the foot on the hip and they hip escape out, and then they try to armbar. But you need your hips close to them. So like the hip escape feels like it should be the right thing to do, but what you do is you put your foot on the hip, you lift your upper body off the ground, and you swivel, but your hips stay where they are, like they are close to the armpit and everything, so that you can throw the leg over and attack. But even teaching this to people that are good and willing to learn and are knowledgeable, like they'll still fight you on that. They'll be like, yeah, put here, and then they'll start to hip escape. And it's just like, unless they've been like somebody's beating it into them to do the right way, or they just happen to see it the first time or whatever. But they'll like argue about it with you, because it's what they know and it's what they've been told, and people don't question things. And I think it's I'm ranting, but like I
love it, man. Drop some knowledge, bro.
So it's like a huge thing. I think it's it only applies to like the top 1% or maybe 5% of jiu-jitsu practitioners, because the majority of jiu-jitsu practitioners never make it past blue belt. Like, right, like there's that meme where you get your blue belt and you quit. Like it's common. Like hardly anyone gets their purple belt. Not like it is a huge accomplishment, but it's not like impossible to do. Right, you just got to show up and just keep learning, right? But most people are just like spend a few years at it and are just like, purple belt's still like a few more years away, and I don't want to screw with it. And it's, jujitsu is not easy. It's a big time commitment. It can be tough on your body. It's hard to keep up with your social life, while you're doing that. But so there's so much to jujitsu in the beginning that it is best. I really believe it is best to not try to reinvent the wheel, to try to just learn all the pre-made stuff, the stuff that everyone put out before you, find different paths and try to like figure out what everyone else knows and build your game and learn jujitsu that way. Because if you try to like, well, I'm just going to make up what I think an armbar is from, you'll spend forever and get not very far. There's just so much stuff out there that people have already gone through, and why would you not just take advantage of their knowledge, right? But because you do that for years and years and years, and even after like say 3, 4, 5, 6 years, you still like, maybe if you have this like sneaking suspicion, like maybe I can make something up or whatever, like it's still usually more efficient to just keep learning from what other people do, right? But once you get to a certain level of skill, which is maybe around like the 6, 7, 8 year mark, somewhere around there, like you can really become like, that's where people become like title contenders at the earliest, like 6 or 7 years, right? Like if they just start jujitsu, dedicate their life to it, put a bajillion hours in it, like they can reach black belt within 6 or 7 years, and they could vie for like a world title if they're like a phenom, and right. But that's like a verifiable master. So from there, when you get to that higher level, I think then is the best time to question everything. Like be like, is this efficient? Like, well, I've been taught this and everyone does it this way or whatever. Like that might be a shitty way to do it. There was just nobody that knew a better way. Right. And like, that's when the innovation needs to happen. Like new moves can be made, more efficient moves can be made, like changes to everything can be made, but very few people get to that level, for one, because most people quit before purple belt, which is a bit before that level. But then also you're just it's beat into you for so many years of don't question anything, just take what's made, right? So like you just go with the flow. And then you get these people that are super high level, and then they still just do the canned stuff that they've been doing for like the last 20 years, and they're just cool with it, right? Because they think it's literally the best, or it's just like it works, so why do it? But those are the people that like they have the knowledge, they've been in it for so long. Like if they really just start nitpicking everything that they were doing, like they would probably improve so much and create new stuff. And I think that's like super important to be creative later on in jiu-jitsu, but it's very hard because you're so conditioned to not be that way.
Or maybe, and I'm a white belt, so I ask this with my head low in respect to your opinion. Or maybe it could be because it's phasic for you to still see like, hey, I'm a purple belt. This brown belt goal is still my choice, so why create? So I'm like following a narrow path because I'm still trying to get that brown belt.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like there's still stuff to do and people are ahead of you, right? Like I can guarantee you like Hodra Gracie, Marcelo Garcia, like they would all kick my butt in jiu-jitsu, right? They're better than me. They've been doing it longer. They've been to the top of the worlds. Like they are better straight up, and they're super technical, right? But if you look at it like that, then you'll never invent anything, and nobody else will ever invent anything unless they're those like top couple of guys, right? But even at like, I mean, I was at purple belt for like a kind of a super long time, like 5 years. But even at purple belt, like I invented 2 foot locks, and like people don't do that move. Like maybe, like it's so hard to say. So many people practice judo and jiu-jitsu throughout all the years that maybe somebody did do the same exact thing, but just never like cared to name it or thought it was any different than a regular footlock or whatever. And so like it could have been like, I'm just reinventing what somebody else has already explored but just abandoned or whatever. But it's something that like it's not like written down anywhere, and nobody that I've ever talked to like knows those things. So, and that just comes from like curiosity and questioning stuff. But even at purple belt, where like there's so much for you to learn, like why question things, right? But I think that if you're like a very high level and you're willing to look at the little details, like you can do a lot from there. But anyone though.
But so someone like Eddie Bravo, like he's his own entity, right? He's like his own planet, like literally his own planet, right? And
yeah, he's a bit of a nut. I mean, like in a jujitsu way, like in a good way.
Sure.
Like it's pretty. A lot of my training partners came up with Eddie Bravo. Like my friend Brent Burnison, he used to train with them all the time over at John Jocks. And he owns Subconscious Jiu-Jitsu in North Hollywood, where I teach at before the world ended.
Sure.
And we always talk about Eddie's game because it's like, you don't get in Eddie's half guard, right? Like you just don't. His half guard's super good. Like he will twister you. He will, if you don't know what to do, like he'll throw you into rubber guard and like mess you up, right? Like he just does these like weird things that nobody else does, and he's super good at them.
And this is still pre-establishing 10th Planet?
Yeah, pre-established. That was just like, I mean, maybe not the rubber. No, he was doing like rubber guard stuff from what I heard before then. But like his half guard was always sick. Like he was always doing like old school sweep, and he was trying to like work that wrestler's guillotine, the twister, they call him jiu-jitsu. But like he was doing all that stuff. He was just had a weird, wacky game, and like, but he was good at it, and he figured it out. Like he's rare though. Like people are not usually creative like him early on. So I don't know what happened there. Like how he just like figured stuff out that was totally different that worked for him. But that's super unusual. But I think it could happen more though if people just thought about it more.
Is that something to where you probably have a parallel feeling when you're developing these 2 footlocks? And I think you have a technique called the French girl.
Yeah, that's one of them. Yep.
Right? You know, so the moment of discovery for something like the 50-50 position with the French girl, right? Is it like a Siddhartha burning tree moment, or is it a gradual development?
I think it's different for, you know, like I've actually like developed a few things that weren't like submissions. Like I've invented 2 submissions. But for non-submission things, I think a lot of people actually invent a lot of non-submission moves, but they just don't even think of it as a move. It's like, well, I Toriando pass and then I pass. So I'm just using Toriando. But like, if you look at like Leandro Lowe Toriando passing, like he doesn't Toriando pass the way other people Toriando pass. Like he doesn't do jiu-jitsu the way other people do jiu-jitsu. He'll get in like full-blown Keenan Cornelius worm guard and like somehow just step out of it when Keenan sweeps. I mean, it's like the worst position to be in. Like, but Leandro will just like kind of magically appear out of it. It's so bizarre. So he's doing different stuff without even thinking about it. That's just the way his body works, and he's super athletic and moves differently than other people and takes it. He probably just doesn't even know it. Just like started having success and started leaning more into some of those movements kind of subconsciously, and then just developed this weird game that to him probably seems like not so technical. Like you just wait for the timing and then you just move this certain way and do it. But other people try to do it, and it's not the same. So I think there's a lot of invention that happens like that people just don't even realize is invention. But when you're somebody that like analyzes the game, the way I try to emulate the people that were before me that still analyze the game, but were doing it long before I did, like Shawn Williams, where they're just like a huge student of the game. They love it. They really like they write out like every technique they know, have like flow charts and like, well, what if you do this and somebody counters with this thing? Like they know all of the different paths for everything. It's pretty insane. So like I try to think about jiu-jitsu like that as well. But it can just happen in different ways. Like the other footlock that I was doing, like I learned because I was teaching my normal footlock. I always liked footlock. So I was
footlock
teaching
1. You were teaching footlock 1, right?
I was teaching
John
normal,
Evans 1.
Just the normal straight ankle, like the vanilla you would learn anywhere. Right. And I at my gym that I owned, and my students that were like blue belt, maybe purple belt, they might have been both blue belt, but they were both doing it, and they were getting like, people were like, oh, I'm feeling it, like not in my ankle, like it feels weird. And I'm like, that seems odd, but it was happening consistently. Like I kept hearing like the people that those students were doing it on the other people, and they're like, you know, this like hurt my knee, or this twisted my leg weird or whatever. And I'm like, but over and over again, like anytime I taught that foot lock, like they were doing it wrong the way that I was teaching it to them, but they like actually, they really invented it. I just was like, sat back and thought, and like, why is this happening? And then I just started deconstructing, like, show me what you're doing. Like, what is this feeling that, you know, this person's talking about when you do this to them? Like, and what are you thinking about? And then like just thinking about it over and over, and having a close group of, like my friend Eddie that I was coaching, he was at my gym as well, and had a couple other close friends that were like purple, brown belt, like they were pretty good and technical, and I could bounce stuff off of them. Like, well, what if I did this? What would your reaction be? And we'd sit there and just kind of like talk through things, different scenarios, until finally I'd be like, I think this is different. There's something here, and I'm going to explore it. And then you can figure out a move like that. That's one of the ways that I figured things out. So, but I think it can just come however, you know, like, it's different for different situations.
Yeah, but in a case like that, where you're at this development point, does something like being an analyst help you overthink, or does it just help you in jiu-jitsu? Because I've heard from other people, but these are Muay Thai announcers, and I won't put them on blast. Oh. But they were like, you know what, man? Doing announcing for me got me stuck. And then a third person I asked, he's like, actually, it helped me. It accelerated, because I get to watch people. But it's interesting for me to hear people that go the inverse and go, no, it got me stuck. But how did announcing for you? Was it fully beneficial? Was it neutral?
It was fully beneficial. I originally started commentating just on my own YouTube channel. I did it for years, like maybe 4 years or something like that, just on my own, because I knew, like, for the first 3 or so years when I was competing, I competed a lot, and especially in the beginning, and then training I was training 5 to 6 days a week, every week, you know, unless I got injured or whatever. And sometimes 2 times a day, just depending on what was going on. And so I did that for maybe about 3 years. And I remember watching, like, it was one finals of the Worlds, and both guys came out and they started like moving. And I realized, like, I have no idea what's going on in this, like, after 3 years of solid dedication to training. And that, like, was disturbing to me. Like, why do I not know? Like, I should know at least like a base level of what is happening. Like I was looking at it, I'm like, I don't know who's winning. I don't know who's losing. I don't know what's available. I don't even know what that guard is passed over. Like, it was just like mind boggling to me. And I don't even remember what match it was, but it was like probably something that was just like a little bit unusual or whatever. It wasn't anything crazy, I'm sure. But then around like the 4th-ish year, training and being under someone like Shawn, who really breaks down so many things for you and makes you very technical, then I started to really understand, like, pretty much most of jiu-jitsu. Like, you can, at least on a base level, like, I could watch even a high level match, and for the most part, like, know like 90% of what was going on. And that was, I felt like somebody needs to explain that to the newer people. Like, I wish I had somebody to explain to me, like, in those first few years when I maybe wasn't getting the best instruction or whatever, and you're just new, like, what was going on in these matches. And I think you just learn so much quicker. So then when I was injured, I was like, I'm just gonna, I'm sitting at home anyway and going stir crazy. I'm just gonna make my YouTube channel and just start, you know, saying what I'm seeing in these matches, and you know, put it out there and see if I can help people or whatever. And turned into like a thing, and then Flow Grappling ended up hiring me, and, you know, it was interesting, but it's helped me the whole time. Like, I learned a lot from commentating. I still learn when I see, you know, different stuff out there. Like, you'll see things like that, because, like, people thought the Insight Senkaku, the saddle, was like a DQable position forever in gi jiu-jitsu, but it wasn't. But Gordon Ryan had to like put out that video of being like, look, it's a knee bar or it's a toe hold and they go to turn and then you're in this position, right? Like they rotate properly to stop the toe hold away and your legs are just there from like that knee bar toe hold position, right? That's inside Senkaku. And he like made that video and put it out. And like, then I think the refs like went back and looked through the rules. Like the rules actually that was not a DQable thing. They just did it because that was just the given thing or whatever. And hats off to IBJJF rules, refs for being like, yeah, you know what? He's right. Like this is not a DQable thing. And they, I think you still get it looks not so great if you're not into leg locks or whatever still. And you probably get some like random DQs for that erroneously. But for the most part, you can do that now and it's like a thing. But then you'll see like Kainan Duarte, like he sweeps from there. And that's kind of like the whole position is new for gi jiu-jitsu. So like when I'm commentating, I see that I'm like, whoa, like what is that? Right? It's cool to see it done in a tournament. And if I'm commentating that tournament, I'll be one of the first people to see that as, if you're just like somebody that's sitting at home and you don't have to watch every match because you're not commentating, you might have missed that match. And then you miss this whole like innovative thing that's happening in the sport. So like even on that, just to stay on that cutting edge, like commentating helps for that. So it's helped me across the board.
But as far as for the duration of time, is it workable to still train and be an analyst? Because you know how like this is common in boxing when people start coaching, whether if they're a mitt guy or they're a pad guy, they lose touch about training themselves. But with doing analyst work, is that something that you can still work in training for yourself? Because it's a potentially time-consuming career, right? Being an analyst.
It can be. It's interesting. I think I never thought about it that way because jiu-jitsu is so hard on the body. Mm-hmm. And some people are just different, right? Like when I was at Cobriñha like wanted you to train like 6 to 9 hours a day. Like that was, if you're on the competition team, if you're casual, like whatever, like show up to class a couple times a week, you go at your own pace. But if you want to like win worlds, like he wanted this like output, and that doesn't necessarily mean like 6 to 9 hours of like just going, like hard training, sparring, every day. But it meant like, you go to like the noon class, you come back for the night class, you're drilling in between both. So you're doing drilling before the first class and the second class. You do conditioning on the side, like that type of thing. Right. And maybe you like do some theory crafting for your game or whatever, like somewhere in there. So like, that's what he meant. It's just basically like a work ethic. It's just a roadmap for like, you got to put in the time if you want to be world champion, which is true. Like you really have to put in the time. You've got to make sure all your bases are covered. And some people would be able to train twice a day on like to what he wanted. Right. And they would do that. But like if they would add weights into their training, like it would wreck their body. Some people would be fine with weights. Like Keenan Cornelius said, he actually like lifts weights more days than he does jiu-jitsu lately. Like he'll like lift weights like 5-6 days a week instead of like, but he'll only train hard like once a day, 4 to 5 times a week, like lately for whatever reason, maybe because he opened his gym or whatever. And he said like, it doesn't affect his body at all to lift weights like that. But some people will just get wrecked from that. And some people like one of the best guys at Cobriñha he was like very adamant. He's like, I can only train hard once a day. If I go that second time, like it breaks his body down. So everyone's super different. For me, I was never like a great athlete. So if I trained twice a day super hard, like by the end of the week, I'd probably get the flu or something. It was horrible. So I would really only train twice a day, a few times a week, or, I'd be like drilling one hard training and then drilling or something like that. But because your body can only take so much of the real hard training, like then that right there frees you up for analytical work, which should help your jiu-jitsu. So for me, it only adds, like, unless you're like some monster that can train like 4 hours hard every day, then, you know, maybe then it'll detract because you should be training if your body will keep up with it. Right. But that was never me. So, yeah, the analytical stuff just helped, I think. And it's something you can do when you're not like killing yourself, you know?
Yeah. But does it, how do I ask this? But does it get to a point where you learn mastery from mastery by watching? Because jiu-jitsu, I feel like, is evolving so fast. You watch something, I mean, you got to work on one thing. Like you were talking about the inside senkaku.
Yeah.
You got to work on that.
Yeah. You have to work on it. Yeah. I mean, you just got to look at it as like a fun thing too.
Okay.
Right? Like if you just look at it like, I got to learn everything, and you're not going to learn it. Like there's a ton of stuff I don't know. I try to learn everything and I still don't know a ton of stuff. Right. So you just got to be like, you know, you're at the gym, you train, like you have focus training. Like if it's before a tournament, like I'm just playing my A game, right? That's it. And then maybe my B game, just like if shit hits the fan in the tournament, I need to have a backup. Right. But you're mainly playing your A game. But if it's not a tournament time, then it's like, well, I play my A game like 20% of the time, my B game another 20%. And then the rest of the time I've got like, I'm working on inside senkaku just to figure it out. And then maybe I'm working on like passing or whatever, like passing, knee cut passing. And so when you have like pet projects like that, then you really kind of hone in on those and just learn specifics about those over time. And that will kind of broaden those areas, and they will sometimes lead into other areas, and it can kind of help you all over. But, you know, like you do that for 3 months and then you move on to the next thing. And eventually, like over years, you learned a lot about very specific and technical jiu-jitsu with just like casually kind of like, I'm just working this, and it's like, and talk to your training partners, and maybe after class, like ask them, hey, when I did this thing, you just crushed me. Like, what did you do or whatever? And just be mindful and thinking about it and inquisitive, because it's really like, for me, it's like a Sherlock Holmes, like detective type of thing. It's like, how am I going to make this better? Like, and what did I do wrong here to, you know, get obliterated? Like it's where all the fun is, right? For me.
So in your observation, what is the better feet to floor combination for jiu-jitsu? Is it wrestling or is it judo? Or is that still contingent on who's your opponent and what your frame is, what you like to do?
For me, it's definitely wrestling, like 100%.
Okay.
But, you know, like just because, for one, a lot of judo goes away if there's no gi, because the judo is very grippy. You can use overhooks for sure and underhooks, and you modify it. But a lot of that stuff is already in wrestling, right? Like I just try not to think about it as like I don't think about it as like, I think about it as takedowns, right? Like takedowns are like wrestling, judo, you know, like anything that gets your, like if I can pull guard and sweep and come up real quick, that's a takedown, right? Just like passing guard, like if you watch like the Meow Brothers, the way they used to pass guard before they got super good at their smash passing from Murillo. What they would do is they felt so uncomfortable as they'd start passing and they would jump, they would dive like violently. If anything went wrong, back into crab ride from like north-south. It was just like, because they would like feel more comfortable going back into the guard and like maybe having an attempt at a back take from there. Right. But that was their style of passing. It's still a pass. Right. So it's like, I think of like wrestling as like judo wrestling, like it's all takedowns, but jiu-jitsu is kind of like that too, right? It's not just like, it's also judo, and it's just grappling. I think it's a good way to, once you start pigeonholing things, like, I don't know, it gets rough. Like, I think you should just try to take the best things from everything, like the tenacity from wrestling and the great like doubles and singles and all the cool things that you can do from there, and like the harai goshis and all of that stuff from judo, which happen a lot in wrestling too, from like, you know, anytime you have foot sweeps or whatever, or body lock or an overhook, they'll do like a lot of those similar moves. But if you just think about like, I'm just going to learn takedowns and I go to like a strict judo school, like it might not translate very well for jiu-jitsu, because having your hips way behind you and leaned over forward the way every jiu-jitsu guy that's bad with takedowns, or even if they're good with takedowns, they just don't want to get, they're like resting or whatever, like they'll just kind of lean forward and have their hips back. Like that's stalling in judo. You can't do it. And that's like the first thing everyone does. So you could train judo for years and go to a jiu-jitsu school and somebody finally stands up with you and then they just like do something that you're not used to seeing. And it's like, why did I spend all this time learning this art that doesn't really apply, right? Like, because the rules are different. So I think if you just learned it as takedowns, it would be easier. But I think strict wrestling translates better to jiu-jitsu than strict judo does. But it's all should be incorporated.
It seems like everyone who I ask at high level, and I guess we can credit the UFC for exposing, but everyone in a high level seems it's been 100%. Everyone says wrestling, where maybe in the earlier days, even pre-UFC, you know, maybe you could put, well, it's gi and gi, so it may complement each other so much better. But at least I'm a little bit more comfortable after surveying 10, 12 people like at your caliber who say that wrestling's at the top point. Can you do like 5 to 10 more minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, cool, man. I appreciate it, man.
No, yeah, whatever works.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I've always wanted to ask you this.
No.
Now, with announcing, because I come from a radio background, is it possible? What's that?
You have a good voice. Were you talking on the air from your radio background?
I used to be on like several networks, like
Sirius
really? XM, BBC, so many different stations. So
I'm like, man, he's got that good radio voice.
That's kind sense. Of you to say. Honestly, like maybe we could train if you still teach privates. I've had a rough 5 years, which I'd love to share off mic with you.
Oh yeah,
because you know, sure. I mean, it sounds like you and I have been through some shit the last half decade, man.
It's been rough, yeah.
You know, so I can sympathize and empathize with that. But
I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, for sure. But you know how Goldberg and Joe Rogan, one was like the color hype man.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan was the technical guy.
Yep.
Is that possible for jiu-jitsu? Because it seems like everything's steering to where you need two different but technical speeches going on, but it can't be like one kind of like Flavor Flav to Chuck D, you know? Yeah.
Yes, I see what you're saying, like play-by-play and commentary. That's interesting. So like for me, I feel like weirdly I'm like one of the few commentators, like not to downplay any other commentators, like there's some pretty good commentators for jiu-jitsu now, which did not used to be the case, like just like, you know, 5-10 years ago, like so it was pretty bad. But just because people didn't know broadcast or commentating, like they didn't study it or whatever. And I think some of the better ones now don't really study it. They just happen to be good at it. But that's a big step up. So like in the past, I feel like they needed people to commentate to give, because one of the things that you want to give when you commentate is context, right? Especially in a technical sport that is boring as hell. Even if you're good at it and know what's going on, it can be boring when guys are just stalling and hugging and it's in the gi and they can't move, or they're stuck in 50-50 or
exhaustion.
Whatever, right? Yeah, exhaustion, which happens, or they're just very evenly matched.
Sure.
And then not a lot happens. Like that happens at the highest level of just about any sport. And it looks terrible. It's just not fun, right? Or bad styles. Like you look at Yoel Romero and Adesanya, and they sat there and like threw feints, but never really closed the distance to punch that for 5 rounds or whatever it was. And it was the worst fight ever. They're two great fighters that wreck other people, but it's a bad matchup, right? So stuff like that happens, and the commentators really need to give context. so that it makes sense, so that it's not boring. Part of the reason that the sport, in my opinion, is so small still, it's growing all the time, but it's a small sport. It is like nobody really makes money on it unless you own a gym or you're at like the top 0.001% competitor and you luck out, like you're Gordon Ryan now, or Danaher. He's not a competitor, but he got famous and you can sell DVDs now or whatever thanks to Bernardo. Yeah, it's great, right? So things like that have changed, so it's a little bit easier to make money. But like you look at like a real sport or like a real job, like I used to work in the entertainment industry doing like production and stuff like that. And you look at that, and like if I work like a freelance job, it's like, oh, here's a few $1,000s, right? They just like throw it to you, and it's like, what? And it's like, oh, what? Excuse me? Like I'm so not used to being paid like real money from jiu-jitsu that like, oh, and it was easy, and you're not gonna like try to take it back from me or like, it's like it's crazy, right? So it's a small sport, is my point, and part of that is because it is boring as hell. If you don't know anything about jiu-jitsu, it is so hard to watch, and so it's extra important that we have people commentating about it that give context. But there's also other things that commentators need to do. Like they need to make it exciting, right? Like you have to be able to, you can't just like talk in like a monotone voice all the time or a super excited voice all the time. Like you have to be able to like build when there's something that's building, and you have to use that energy to bring people along in the journey. And, there's like, it's kind of like a big responsibility. But I think that that's really important for bringing the sport up. It's like maybe number one, and hardly anyone, like as far as like tournaments or companies in jiu-jitsu, like they don't really even care about commentating that much. And I think it's like maybe like one of the most important things. It's super overlooked, undervalued. Most people, when they hear commentating, they just judge it by like, if the guy doesn't sound familiar, like they've never heard that person talk before, it's garbage just because they're not used to it. It's sure. Like people felt that way about Joe Rogan, like in the beginning. It's like, who's this guy commentating or whatever? Like, and then they're like, oh, he's the guy from,
news radio.
It's totally. And then like, okay, well, it seems to know, like it's just familiarity. Like people don't, the first time they hear somebody, they just like brush it off. It's not familiar. They put up that wall. They haven't made up their mind about it. So it's interesting to see that. But in the old days, like commentary was just, do you know jiu-jitsu? Could you just get on the mic and talk about it? Like, it's not going to be good commentary. They're just going to be like, oh, this guy should butterfly sweep. But that like the guy's talking only knows about butterfly sweeps and he doesn't know how to talk. So he's just talking in a monotone voice, maybe doesn't talk for like long periods of time when there's exciting stuff happening. So like people watching at home just think like nothing's happening and it's boring. So rough. So you can do a play-by-play. You can have like a real broadcaster that's a play-by-play guy, and have just a color commentator guy. But it always helps with the color commentator guy that he's like the expert. If he can do simple things that are like commentary based that most people don't know to do, like bring a little more energy to it or get excited about something to like draw the audience in, or like little things like that. And the play-by-play commentator, used to be like his job was to like call every single thing that was happening. So if you're listening on the radio, which people did back in the day, right? Like sure. Then you would know what's going on just without seeing it. But now that's changed, right? So nobody listens to jiu-jitsu on the radio, and that would be pretty rough, even if you're a good old school play-by-play commentator. But honestly, for me, a lot of what I watched lately for commentary is esports, because they have like a different way of doing it that's a little more new school. I also listen to the old school people in like traditional sports too, like Formula One or MotoGP, racing for some reason, but also like basketball, like old Lakers broadcasts, like Chick Hearn, stuff like that. Like, there's a lot of like traditional good commentators that you can take stuff from as well. But esports is like that cutting edge. It's actually kind of what got me into jiu-jitsu commentary with a focus. And a lot of them back before esports were more popular, they were solo commentating, and they do play-by-play and color commentating. Like they were the expert, and they had to convey, they had to be the broadcaster to be professional and bring the excitement and give you context, like all at once. And you have to be able to talk fast, otherwise you miss things. And then you got to be able to like chill it out if nothing's going on or whatever. And I think if you can do that, then if you have somebody that's not, they're just like a analyst, or they're not good at talking, right? But you like know the technical side, you know the broadcast side, you can kind of work with anyone. But the better the other guy is, the better the commentary team is going to be typically. So, you know, that's my take on it. But the better both guys are, it always makes it better.
Right, like when it's Cormier, Rogan, and then you have John Anik. I've been noticing a trend. Anik pulls back and lets the two technical guys, or the guys who have fought, do their thing. But I would love to hear an Anik like, oh my goodness, Joe, look at what's happening to his left leg. They just sometimes when it's too technical, at least for MMA, but for jiu-jitsu, I think it's totally palatable to have two technical guys.
Okay.
From my perspective, at least, right?
No, especially if they're not like for me, I'm so into the entertainment aspect of it, because that's the only way you're going to get new people that don't like. Everyone that watches jiu-jitsu now does jiu-jitsu, and that's a problem, right? Like if everyone that watches jiu-jitsu, if the only people that watch baseball tried to like play professional baseball, like there would not be a big audience. That's a very small amount of people, and you would be killing. The sales would be terrible. You would not have a lot of stadiums. It would not be like where it is before 2020, but like 2019 or whatever. So like that is a big problem. And if you don't like bring that energy, if you don't get people excited about things that know nothing about it, like the sport is going to be, it's always going to like, it'll get bigger, but it'll always limp along, right? Like the only way it's going to get bigger from there is like grassroots, like get people into gyms, get people training so they can care about this stuff in the first place, and then they'll watch it, but it'll go slow. And so many people just quit after a while because it's a tough sport. It's not for everyone, like it's rough, right? If we're ever going to make it a spectator sport, you have to be able to like break it down for somebody that's never trained a day in their life and make it interesting for them, which is tough because jiu-jitsu is super technical and can be boring to watch. So I really feel like the commentary has to be as good as possible, hopefully, to do those things. And typically just like a plain color commentator, like luckily now, like some of the color commentators that are not like trained or whatever, they just happen to be good at, like they just get excited about it and you can hear it in their voice and they start talking and it's like, oh, okay. And you're interested, right? Like, and you can listen to two color commentators that are just like getting really stoked about this awesome stuff that's happening. And I think that's probably where you're like, oh yeah. And look at it's all technical and, and like you're engaged, everything's good. But that's only started happening in the last like 5 years or so. Like, and it's still like not always the most consistent. Like it just depends on who's talking and, or whatever. Like it's tough to get that consistently. So
I just think, John, there's a lot of people that are just insecure and they're trying to make sure, like, hey, listening jiu-jitsu audience, I'm technical.
I know.
So they're trying to be out technical each other. And there's this wavelength of insecurity instead of like, hey man, you got to be a fan too.
Yes. That's funny you mentioned that. I totally felt that way when I first started commentating. Like I had to be like, I'm only a purple belt, or blue, maybe I was a blue belt when I started on YouTube or whatever. Like I have to be like, I have to show people that I'm technical or whatever. And that is the default for anyone that's new to commentary for jiu-jitsu, because you don't want to feel like you don't know enough to, like you don't want to be like exposed as like some, just
Hack.
some, yeah, a
Piece of
hack,
shit.
right? Like, exactly. Like, what's this guy doing talking on here or whatever? First of all, people will feel that way about you no matter how much you know and how good you are, just because you're new and they don't know you. So, like, that's whatever. You can't worry about that stuff. But, like, that is one of the worst things you can do, like, right? Because you don't want to be like, oh, well, you could do this and there's this little thing here or whatever, because it's not, it doesn't make any sense to what's going on. Like, you want to give context. You want to be like, if he goes this way, this can happen, or this might happen. But if he goes this way, the other guy's probably looking for this. Like, it's not about how much you know. It's about like what might happen here, so people like know what to expect, right? And
It's
you
not
do have
about
to,
you. It's about the audience.
exactly, and about what's going on in front of you, so that way it's not like a, whoa, where did that come from? And if something crazy happens, then as a commentator, you got to like let the audience know, like, that was crazy. Like, that should not have happened. I did not see that coming. Like, that doesn't make you less technical. That makes it like, especially if you've been training a long time and you've been commentating and you've seen a lot of jiu-jitsu, if something really catches you off guard, that's probably pretty unusual. And most people watching are not going to be as knowledgeable as you. So it's important to tell them, like, that was crazy. Like, we need to take a second and think about that, because like, that guy should not have been able to flip the other dude on his head from this, from like crab ride or whatever, right? Like, how did that happen? And then people get excited about that, because it's like, whoa, that's a rare thing that I just got to see. But if you try to like cover it up, like, I knew like this, or I thought he was going to do this thing, like it kills all that excitement, where it was a really pretty spectacular thing. And you're privileged to see something like that happen in a tournament at a high level. But yeah, you don't want to, those are the important things in commentary and jiu-jitsu, and you don't want to like ruin those, right? You want to make them special, like show them for what they are, I think. So.
Yeah. And you probably experienced this, but when you work with someone who's not insecure and they give you a toss where it's like, go ahead, John, get yours. Let me hear what you have to say. And then they're comfortable in their own skin where they can react off what you said. That's the best feeling. And you make
the best. Yeah.
It's not even Batman and Robin. It's like Superman and Superman, and it feels good to work with each other that way.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, and even if like the guy, like, so that from broadcast, it's like clearly, right? Like, it's a great feeling. It's like, and like, so like when I commentate with Raf, right? Like, whether you agree with what he's saying or like him as a person or whatever, like separate, like Raf is a very good broadcaster, and he's good, he's good at talking. He's good at talking,
sure,
and being professional and doing all those things. He can add excitement. He can engage the audience. Like, he's very good with those things. And so like, and especially now that he's become pretty technical, he's like a very technical grappler, knows a lot about jiu-jitsu. He's been training a long time.
He's a purple belt, right? Under Valley Mac?
Yeah. I mean, like, he was one of my first students when I was teaching there or whatever.
Sure.
And he'd been training a little while. So now he's been training like, God, probably like, it's got to be coming up on a decade. He's been training a long time.
Under you and Marcelo, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was teaching there more than Marcelo, because he's only there like a couple of days a week, and I was sometimes there like 3 days a week or whatever. So just because he's got like a full-time job or whatever, and the classes that Raf would come to would be more often mine. And then when I opened my gym, he was always there, and we just have always trained together a lot. But he's been training so long that he's like very technical now too, and really knows the game. So now when we commentate, it's like, not only do I get this great broadcaster that's good at, like, even before, if he couldn't add context, he would know to throw to me to like add the context or do whatever needed to be done. He knew what he didn't know, right? He's like, you're good at this thing, go do it, right? But now we can literally, like, I can play color commentator, and then he can be play-by-play, and then he can throw it to me and switch. So I'm play-by-play, and he'll do color.
Best.
And then we'll do a hybrid of both, and then just like, like, you can just do whatever, and it's the best. It's like that's when it's like the machine is working properly, right? And that doesn't happen very often in jiu-jitsu commentary, right? But for professional broadcasters, that's the standard. Like, you aspire to that, and you try to always get that going, but it's broadcasting is like a field that's been around forever, and radio is always going to be more popular probably than jiu-jitsu ever will be. So, or anything that's going to go out over the air. So that's just like, people know how good it can be, and like that's where it should be on a professional level, right? But in jiu-jitsu, it's like you can have a great broadcaster, but like most broadcasters are going to know absolutely nothing about jiu-jitsu, so it's tough to just fit a great broadcaster out of the blue, like with zero training, into a jiu-jitsu thing. So that's where it becomes weird, right?
Right. And for the viewers and the listening audience, like in my area, there's generators and there's reactors. And the worst thing is when you have 2 reactors or 2 generators, and they're just trying to take the airwaves instead of trying to lob and do an assist pass. They're not trying to alley-oop each other. Like, go ahead, man, get yours. Here's off the glass. Boom, get it. And from what John, well, a lot of the reason why, not to speak about you in third person, but a lot of the reason why I wanted to interview John, because, he's from that Maybach Ferrari style of like broadcasting, because I can hear when someone is like spot on. And the fact that you and I can even rap about working with people on behind the mic shows like the most overused word in jiu-jitsu, a lineage of like broadcasting and podcasting. So yeah, I feel like I could rap with you a little bit longer, because there's so much more layers behind what everyone goes through. And as I rap, I didn't even bring up like, school closing, COVID, because I want to keep it like right now, like, on this metabolism.
Sure.
Of good talk. We can we can have whiskey talk.
So much going on in the world. It's crazy.
Behind the scene.
Yeah.
Right on. But, so are you open to training people? Giving privates or?
Yeah, I'm currently giving privates if you're doing privates.
How can they get a hold of you?
They can message me either through my email, which is john@bjjbreakdown.com, or you can go add me on Instagram, which is just @bjjbreakdown. And yeah, those are the 2 best ways. I'm also going to be revamping my YouTube channel very soon, in the next couple of weeks, adding a lot of stuff that people that are into jiu-jitsu or also not into jiu-jitsu will equally like, hopefully. And that will be interesting. And that's just youtube.com/bjjbreakdown as well. Yeah. And so that would be awesome if you followed me there, and hopefully get some entertainment or some value out of that.
No, definitely. I would encourage everyone to follow John, because there's just, you can either visually or even just hear the knowledge behind it. And, I have a lot of respect for like really dope, like podcasters and broadcasters, and podcasting and broadcasting are 2 different things. There's an element of really having a ebb and flow that's for the audience, and that's the broadcaster, so, and you got it, man. So
thank you.
For sure, man. I'm going to hit you up in a couple of days, because this is due tomorrow morning. So I'm going to cut and edit this tonight. Yeah. And hopefully we'll get to train within the next week or 2.
Yeah, whenever you want, please hit me up. That would be awesome. I'd love to pick your brain about broadcast and your last 5 years and everything too. It just sounds interesting.
Yeah, dude. That's like a burger and a beer conversation, bro. It's been heavy.
Let's do it.
Heavy last 5 years, bro. Which I can detect in your voice, so that you've been through some shit.
Make it happen.
For sure.
Yeah, it's been rough for most people lately, but I feel like you and I maybe have had a little extra on top of
We've had the soup and salad.
Yeah.
Pandemic, what? Come on, man. Come on,
This was like, it's like, oh, this is happening on top of everything? All right, that makes sense. It's not as harsh, maybe.
I don't know if you've seen Forrest Gump, when Lieutenant Dan got his legs chopped off and he's on top of the shrimp boat during a storm, and he's like, God, is this all you got?
Yeah. There's a bit of that, right? Like, 2020 came around and it's like, all right, like we're grizzled already. It's like, okay.
Right. Yeah, more salt, huh? More salt on the wound. Okay. Put some lemon up in that bitch. So.
Totally. Oh my God. Terrible.
Right on, John. Well, thank you so much. And I'll text you or call you sometime next week, if that's cool.
Please. That'd be awesome. Yeah. I had so much fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. I appreciate the interview, brother. Take care.
Thank you, man. Yeah,
Yep.
take it easy.
You too.